Following winter testing in Barcelona, Haas announced the termination of Uralkali as title sponsor and the contract of driver Nikita Mazepin. Mazepin's contract was tied through the sponsorship of Uralkali, as his father Dmitry Mazepin is the co-owner of the company. Haas's termination of both were done in response to Russia's invasion and ongoing war in Ukraine, and the close ties Mazepin has to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Haas was looking for a new driver, and Gunther Steiner said that reserve driver Pietro Fittipaldi would be the first choice. Fittipaldi has been Haas's test and reserve driver since 2019, and also ran 2 races in 2020 for Haas in place of injured Roman Grosjean. Other major names being thrown around were Alpine reserve driver Oscar Piastri, Aston Martin reserve driver Nico Hülkenberg, current Formula E and former Alfa Romeo driver Antonio Giovinazzi. There had been reports that Piastri and Hülkenberg wouldn't be getting the seat, but nothing confirmed. Giovinazzi and Fittipaldi were looking like the frontrunners. It was reported that Giovinazzi had a clause in his contract to get him out of Formula E if an F1 team offered him a contract. Haas would go with none of those, though. They chose former driver Kevin Magnussen. This is a move I certainly didn't see coming. Magnussen had seemed like he had moved on from F1 and had established a career outside of F1. After leaving Haas at the end of 2020, Magnussen moved to America to race in IMSA with Ganassi and also a one-off IndyCar race with McLaren. Magnussen was still under contract with Ganassi for IMSA and was actually scheduled to race in Sebring on March 19th. Magnussen was also under contract with Peugeot for the World Endurance Championship later this year. So I think going with Fittipaldi would have been the best option, given that most drivers were under contracts elsewhere and may not be able to get out of them. Haas had even posted a picture on Twitter of Fittipaldi driving at Bahrain from 2020. This led many people, including myself, to think that they were hinting to Fittipaldi getting the seat. And in fact, I was fully expecting them to announce Fittipaldi as the driver. But I think Pietro lacks the experience to create a good driver lineup for Haas. And he hasn't shown much in junior categories that, at least on paper, says he's got the skills to lead an F1 team that's hoping for a resurgence back into the midfield. I do think a Schumacher-Fittipaldi driver lineup sounds great, and Haas could use that to help leverage sponsors. Schumacher and Fittipaldi are 2 great names in racing, and Haas can use that to help sponsors get behind them. One other issue for Haas if they had gone with Fittipaldi would be that they would then technically need to fill 2 driver spots, as they would almost certainly then need another reserve driver, especially considering that Mick Schumacher is Ferrari's reserve driver. So Haas could lose a driver even due to things outside of their own team. It's not entirely clear who would fill that role for Haas either. It looks like Schwartzman and Eilert are the only 2 Ferrari development drivers with a super license, but with Schwartzman being Russian and with Haas distancing itself the way it has from Russia, and Eilert being an IndyCar, both seem unlikely. I was critical of Haas in 2021 for signing an all-rookie lineup because it limits not only development of the car, but also the driver. If you pair a rookie with an experienced driver, they can help improve both. Magnussen will also bring a benchmark to Schumacher in terms of performance. We know how good Magnussen can be, but we don't really know how good Schumacher is yet. His 2021 results are not indicative of his skill level, as the 2021 Haas was an absolutely garbage car. What Magnussen brings to the table for Haas is experience. Not just experience, but experience with Haas. He knows people in the team and how the team operates. That experience is going to be crucial to Haas, who is looking to get back into the midfield and develop and upgrade a car for the first time in 2 years. The 2020 car and the 2021 car were not upgraded at all. And the 2021 car was in fact the exact same as the 2020 car, with just the required modifications to comply with the technical regulations. Magnussen is not just a year band-aid for Haas, as they signed the Danish driver to a multi-year contract. Gunther Steiner had this to say on the signing of Magnussen, quote, "I'm delighted to welcome Kevin Magnussen back to Haas F1 team. When looking for a driver who could bring value to the team, not to mention a wealth of Formula One experience, Kevin was a straightforward decision for us. Kevin's immediate availability means we can tap into him as a resource for preseason testing alongside both Mick Schumacher and Pietro Fittipaldi. Pietro is going to be first in this week with a half a day's running at the test on Thursday, and that's a great opportunity for him, with Mick and Kevin doing the rest ahead of the Bahrain Grand Prix." End quote. He also said, quote, "Kevin was a key component in our previous success, not least when we both scored our best finishes in Formula One back in 2018. He continued to show last year that he's an elite race car driver, adding wins and podiums to his resume. As a veteran presence in both the garage and the engineering room, he'll provide a solid benchmark for us with the ongoing development of the VF22. We're all looking forward to welcoming Kevin back this week in Bahrain." End quote. Kevin Magnussen had this to say, quote, "When I left F1, I think I could have stayed in F1 with another team, but it would have been messy with a lot of sponsors. I didn't really have that motivation. I ran out of motivation to be running at the back. I had only done that for 2 years, as previously to that, I had been in the midfield, and that was really fun, but those 2 years were tough from a motivational point of view. Then I went away, did some other racing, and got podiums, got pole positions, and wins, and that was really fun. I was enjoying it, and then Gunther called me and ruined all of that. I could just feel in my stomach that I want to do this. I didn't know that I missed it that much, but when I got the opportunity, I was like, yeah." End quote. Magnussen said he never felt like he had a shot at getting the seat, saying, quote, "Gunther called me about a week ago, and I was just about to go to the US with my family for a holiday before Sebring. I decided to go because I thought, let's just see if it happens or not. Then I got to Miami and Gunther called me back and said, let's do it. And so I came back. There was a lot of stuff that had to be sorted out. Of course, I was contracted to Peugeot, and with Ganassi actually, I was contracted to race with them at Sebring in the 12-hour race next weekend, but he was super nice to let me out of that deal." End quote. In reference to the multi-year nature of the contract, K-Mag said, quote, "It wasn't something I said that it has to be, but I was happy it was because it wouldn't have made sense to come back for 1 year. I've tried it. It's not new to me coming back properly," and Gunther saying how motivated the team are. "It feels like they are in good shape, and it was just too exciting. I really wanted to do it. I can feel that." End quote. It's not clear how long Magnussen's contract is. I've not found any source that can verify the length. They all just state it's a multi-year contract. Magnussen brings 21 of Haas's 45 points finishes. In fact, Magnussen has more points finishes compared to Grosjean during the same time they were both at Haas, with Magnussen at 21 and Grosjean at 19. Magnussen also outscored Grosjean on points 96 to 75 during that same time. He has Haas's second best ever finish in a Grand Prix with 5th twice in 2018. Grosjean had a 4th in 2018 and a 5th in 2016. Speaking of 2018, he and Grosjean led Haas to their best ever finish of 5th in the constructors' standings. In 2020, when he and Grosjean both finished, Magnussen beat Grosjean 5-2. Magnussen brings 119 Grand Prix starts compared to Fittipaldi's 2. I do expect a bit of an adjustment period for Magnussen, even if, say, the car is great and fighting for points every race. I do think it will take a few races for Magnussen to adjust back to all the demands of driving in F1. Fittipaldi just lacks the experience, even at the junior level. The two biggest achievements to his racing resume over the past 5-6 years was winning World Series Formula V8 3.5 in 2017, and then 5th in Asia Formula 3 in 2019. Now, the only other series Pietro raced in full time during that time was DTM in 2019, which he split between two teams, but he was outscored 67 to 21 points by Audi Sport Team WRT teammate Jonathan Aberdeen. Pietro finished 15th to Aberdeen's 10th. I do think that Haas has probably looked worse over the past 2 to 3 years than I think they're capable of. Haas had actually fixed its problems from its 2019 car with its 2020 car, and the 2019 car was actually pretty quick over a very short run. They had upgrade plans for the 2020 car, but with the COVID pandemic, Haas quickly slashed their budget, and that included the upgrade plan. Haas had abandoned 2021 to focus on the 2022 car. In the new regulations, Haas has greatly increased their technical staff, having taken on more staff from Ferrari at Haas's new Maranello base, as Ferrari had to cut spending to get under the budget cap. 2022 will be the most in-house developed car Haas has ever produced. Now, one of the major reasons that Haas abandoned an upgrade plan for 2020 was that in years past, those have had very little results in terms of performance gain. So I guess the real question is why that is, and has Haas fixed that so they could upgrade this car and make it better. However, I do wonder how Haas having staff split across 3 different buildings in 3 different countries across 2 continents affects their workflow and productivity. Haas has their main base in Kannapolis, North Carolina in the United States. Then they have a base in Banbury in the UK. And now their newest base in Maranello, Italy. It doesn't seem like the most ideal situation from a workflow and productivity standpoint. Also, I think that Haas is probably financially better off than most people think, provided Gene Haas commits to running this team like a race team, trying to be competitive and not just a marketing platform for Haas Automation. I think Gene has the money to put into the team, but he has been reluctant to do so for 2 reasons. 1, the COVID pandemic and Haas abandoning 2021 in favor of 2022 in the new regulations. 2nd, being the spiraling out of control cost by the top teams and that money gap between the top teams and lower teams growing, which this has been addressed through the budget cap. The budget cap is what really kept Haas in F1. Haas is being realistic about their potential, and they just plan on being competitive amongst the midfield and not trying to be a team to win races on a regular basis. The strong relationship that Haas has with Ferrari, I think, will severely limit how good Haas can be. I see Haas as like AlphaTauri is to Red Bull. Haas is a junior team to Ferrari and is there to develop Ferrari drivers and compete in the midfield. Gunther Steiner had this to say regarding the termination of Uralkali's contract and Haas's financial state. Quote, Haas has always been the major primary sponsor. I don't know why people said it became a Russian team. Haas Automation was always on the car. We're good. We're fine. We'd like more money, of course, but we're fine. This just gives us a bigger negative number. End quote. Okay, so people said it became a Russian team because it was basically carrying the Russian flag on it with colors that didn't match Haas or Uralkali. Colors that matched Russia's flag and the same orientation as Russia's flag. And the United States flag was actually moved to a much smaller place on the car when they made those changes. I already made a video going into the details of all that last year, so go check it out. I'm not entirely sure what he means by, quote, a bigger negative number. As someone with a business background, that would make me think the team is operating at a loss, but I'm not sure if he is referring to the money coming from Gene Haas's Haas Automation. I don't think he's referring to the team actually operating on a negative because that wouldn't be financially viable. My best guess is that Haas is now having to inject more money to cover the cost of Uralkali, and they are viewing any money coming from Haas Automation as a negative, despite it being claimed as the primary sponsor, even during the Eurocoli sponsorship. If it's sponsorship, it shouldn't be considered a negative. I've always had this idea that Gene wants the team to fund itself. And what I mean by this is he wants the team to operate solely on the money earned through winnings from the previous season, sponsorship, and any other cash inflow the team can earn. That doesn't involve him putting his own money into the team. So this is why I think they're referring more to the money coming from Haas. The team was fine before COVID, spending around the same amount. Gene Haas has turned down multiple offers to sell the team. He isn't looking to jump ship and leave F1. He seems like he wants to be here. As an American, Haas has always been an interesting team to me, and I've always gave it a bit more attention than the other teams. I think Haas is a better car than they've had in a while. And I think they have a driver lineup now that's capable of getting some quality results with it. I don't think Haas is in a dire financial situation. It's just a tight financial situation, as they don't have many sponsors, and running out of the back of the field for the past couple of seasons will certainly do that. If Haas has produced a car that can bring some quality results, then they might be able to bring in more sponsors and make the financial situation better. I'm sure if you ask any F1 team if they would like more money, I'm sure all of them would say yes. With the budget cap, it will now allow more teams to operate on a more even playing field. So now, you've heard from me, now I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Haas signing Kevin Magnussen? Do you think Haas can be competitive in 2022? What do you think about the current state of Haas F1? Let me know what do you think down in the comments. Thanks for watching. Until next time, so long everybody.